right, I can say that it's the best rivalry in the NFL, the best rivalry in sports. You can say that. We're going to agree with each other because, we follow the football team that's based in Pittsburgh. But it actually is. Good afternoon to you. Good Friday afternoon. I'm Dejan Kovacevic of DK Pittsburgh Sports. This is the new Double Shot Show. It comes your way at 4 p.m. Eastern every weekday. It'll be Steelers versus Ravens across the river, 1:02 p.m. Sunday. And it's going to be another one of these games that's decided by a Chris Boswell kick or a Justin Tucker kick or a late flick from Kenny Pickett to Najee Harris or Mason Rudolph showing up in the ice cold and coming up big or Isaac Redmond pinballing off people or Troy Polamalu with a pick or something like that. But it's going to be airtight and it's going to be dramatic, decided in the final, the final 3, 2, 1 minutes, something like that. How do I know that? Because there's not another way between these teams. There just isn't. This will be the 61st meeting between the Steelers and the Ravens since the Ravens came into existence when Art Modell took the Browns from Cleveland to Baltimore. The Steelers have won 6 of the last 7 meetings. And you think, well, this isn't the rivalry it once was. This is now starting to tilt in a certain direction. And it's not. All 6 of the Steelers' wins in that time have come by 5 points or less. That's nuts. That's nuts for that to happen. And it keeps happening. Remember in the COVID year when the Ravens came here with one fewer bus than they usually do because they only had like 36 players since everyone had been quarantined? Half their roster had been quarantined. And you're thinking, this is going to be dangerous. This is how can the NFL allow this game to go on? John Harbaugh's pulling people off the street. They're going to get hurt out there. They're not ready for this. And it ended up being like a close game most of the way. And you're like, how did that happen? How did that happen? Because it was Steelers versus Ravens. Tell me where else this exists. Tell me where else you have a rivalry that's been going on for this long. Tell me where else. Give me in the NFL. You can cut through that one in a hurry. Is when you're talking about NFL rivalries, most of them are dated. People say stuff like Packers versus Bears. That's our rivalry. No, it's not. The Bears stink. You're talking about Cowboys versus Giants or some other NFC East thing. Well, the NFC East stinks and has stunk for quite some time now, except for the Eagles. You're talking about Chiefs versus Broncos. That's another one that comes up. Nobody's a rival with the Chiefs. The Chiefs just mop everybody up. They've been doing it for years now. That's not a rivalry. You can call it that. You can pump it up that way. When the Steelers were in Las Vegas, everywhere around me, the Raiders PR people and their messaging on the board and everything was really, really getting into the Steelers versus Raiders rivalry based on something that happened in the 1970s. Well, the 1970s were 50 years ago, and it was a short span. That's not what this is. This is not a short span rivalry. This is one of those that really, really stands the test of time. It also stands the test of other potential rivalries. Remember when the Steelers were going into Cincinnati and they were having all these bloodbaths with Vontaze Burfict or Myles Garrett in Cleveland swinging his helmet at Mason Rudolph's head? The Ravens remained the arch rival throughout all of that. And that, by the way, is the proper, look it up in Merriam-Webster, term for this. You can only have one arch rival. The Steelers have one of those. The Ravens have one of those. And you want to know the coolest thing? And I mean this sincerely. I have seen the Steelers get happy/livid after beating the Bengals, especially in Cincinnati, where they're just so angry and they want to go out there and beat them up some more. I've seen them get that way even a couple of times against the Browns in recent years. They don't do that against the Ravens. Want to know why? They'll all tell you this, past and present. There's a mutual respect. Yeah, you can see people punching each other in the mouth out there. You can see them hitting each other to take the other guy out. But at the end of the game, they understand that it was Pittsburgh versus Baltimore, and this is just how it's supposed to be. Tell me where else that exists in professional sports. When we come back, Chris Halleck.
At DK Pittsburgh Sports, we take pride in coverage that connects our city's fans to their favorite teams. Now, that connection's stronger than ever. Introducing our all-new state-of-the-art app. Find expert inside reporting and original podcasts. Check live box scores. Track the latest stats. Chat it up with our community of thousands of fans, all in one place. The new app from DK Pittsburgh Sports. Coverage that connects.
Joined now by Chris Halleck. And see, one of the benefits of having a show like this where everybody's independent, you're not working for the team, you're not working for the league or the rights holders, is that we can say stuff that the team doesn't want you to say and the team itself wouldn't say, such as Baltimore secondary stinks. Okay. I mean, let's just call that for what it is, because Mike Tomlin tried to tiptoe around it this week. Arthur Smith tried to tiptoe around it earlier this week. But come on, man. I mean, the numbers are the numbers. These guys are bad.
Yes, they are. Now, the one thing that both Mike Tomlin and Arthur Smith have said is that the numbers, the overall numbers can be skewed because, well, let's not forget that Ravens offense is the best in the NFL, and they have gotten out to some large leads, and then teams have had to throw their way back into games. But no, they're still pretty bad. But it's not even just the secondary. I even think it's like some of the linebacker play. Roquan Smith hasn't been all that great in coverage this. I mean, all that talk about Patrick Queen needs
was
to
going to miss Roquan.
Yeah,
that's it. And maybe it's the other way around, right?
And Roquan's just he's still been a good linebacker, but he hasn't been that dominant in coverage. Simpson, their other linebacker, he kind of gets lost sometimes too, trying to cover tight ends over the middle. Hello, Pat Fryermuth, maybe. But it's just, then you start to see safeties like try to overcompensate for stuff like that. You just see little things here and there, just little hiccups here and there. And that can be the difference between being a decent secondary to being a really, really bad secondary, because that might mean a lot of chunk plays too.
Let's substantiate some of these vicious accusations we're leveling. The Ravens have conceded, and I do think that might be the appropriate term, 294.9 yards per game through the air. I'm going to say that again. Almost 300 yards per game through the air. Now, I don't care what plan of attack the opponent has or how they're adjusting or how they need to come back against you. Nothing requires you to give up 300 yards a game through the air. That's just not good. Also, and relevant, we have eyeballs. We can watch this team. And I happened to really kind of, be honest with you here, immerse myself in their game against the Bengals last week. And they weren't good. I understand you're facing Joe Burrow, and I understand Burrow's good for 4 touchdowns a game. And I understand also that Jamar Chase is like from another planet, the way he's performing right now in Cincinnati. But you shouldn't be giving up 250 yards to one guy. I'm talking about Chase. You do have answers for that as a secondary if you're any good.
Yeah, and not even just like to not even bring up the Bengals, because like you said, Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase, that's a great connection.
Oh.
They made Jameis Winston look like a legitimate NFL quarterback in that loss to the Browns. Because what have the Browns done since then? The Browns have been they've gone back to being the crappy Browns ever since that game. And it's like, why did the Ravens secondary make Jameis Winston look that great? Is it because it was AFC North ball, or just maybe the fact that because this is a really bad Ravens secondary?
So here we have the Ravens secondary. And by the way, to start attaching names to some of these guys, I mean, the two that are going to be the most familiar to you are Marlon Humphrey, because he's been around forever. He's still a good football player. Yes. Kyle Hamilton is strong safety. He's a very good football player. He got banged up in the Cincinnati game here. He's seen as questionable going into this week. I'm sure he's going to play. It's just like it's Baltimore week here, it's Pittsburgh week there. He's gonna play. The rest of their guys, left corner Nate Wiggins, free safety Marcus Williams, right corner Brandon Stevens. Not a good overall group. However, what's fascinating about this is that when you get into rushing defense, guess who happens to be number one?
Yeah,
Baltimore.
Yeah.
And now you know, and I know, that Arthur Smith and Mike Tomlin are still going to run the football. And I'm preparing everybody for this now, because you're going to be driven nuts on Sunday. You're going to be going, what are they doing? They've got the worst pass defense and they've got the best rush defense, and you're running right into them. But there's also merit to doing that, isn't there?
Yeah, I mean, you have to. I mean, this offense, this passing game is built on play action, and play action doesn't mean anything if you don't try to run the football, because then you're just turning around wasting time for receivers to get open. You have to actually give the defense a reason to bite on that play action, and so they do have to try to run the football. And guess what? What if the Ravens just show up and just suck against the run? What if that does happen? I'm not betting on that to happen. That's a pretty bad bet, but you never know. We've seen games in which we didn't think that either team would have before. I've seen the Ravens run all over the Steelers defense before. I've seen Ben Roethlisberger throw for, 18 touchdowns in a game before. It happens sometimes. There's those weird games. So you can't just go in thinking, oh, we're not going to run the football. We're just going to throw the ball 60 times. You can't do that.
See, I'll add something to that. I think that if you're the Steelers, you need to run the ball also to chew up the clock. The best way to keep Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry and all those guys from beating you offensively is to not have them on the field. It was the old Tom Brady principle. Even Brady can't beat you from the sideline. And if you can find a way to chew up clock, if you can find a way to have nice, 10, 12 play drives, I'm getting greedy here, but 10, 12 play drives here before you beat that secondary, I mean, that's okay. And if you think about the Steelers' patterns offensively over these past 4 weeks, since they've all of a sudden become competent, that's actually pretty much how they go, isn't it? They get down to the red zone, and then where's George? Hey, there he is.
Yeah.
And it's worked.
Yes, it has, and that's the one area that I still want to see, and still curious to see how it develops. And this is a great week to see it because of this Ravens secondary. Is how does Russ continue to have success throwing the deep ball? Because we know he can throw it to George Pickens, but how much more will Mike Williams be? What will his uptick be? Will he play 18 snaps this time instead of 9? And will he get 2 targets instead of 1, or will, I don't know. But the more that he can get acclimated to this offense and get a larger workload, the better it is, because we saw the cause and effect of it last week against Washington. And we could see that again this week against, like we've been talking about, a really bad secondary that's been giving up a lot of yards and can be susceptible to the deep ball.
Dude, set the rivalry aside, okay? Set all the intangibles aside. This is a fun football matchup, isn't it? Just from the football nerd standpoint.
Yeah, I think any game that, Arthur Smith Thursday put it in a way of saying, watching Derrick Henry when you're not going up against him is a lot of fun, but it's not so fun when you have to actually be on the other side of it.
No, that's a completely different element there. When we come back, J1Q.
Safety is a habit, Gun safety and responsible storage are no different. Help prevent gun accidents, misuse, and theft. Keep firearms safe and secure when not in use. For safe storage options, visit projectchildsafe.org.
Time now for J1Q, and for that we head to Ryan George in Virginia Beach.
Hey, DK. I love what Arthur Smith is doing, don't get me wrong. But what they're doing with Freiermuth in terms of the snap count and just general game plan has me scratching my head. Curious if you had any insight there. Last thing, Bob Nutting, go ahead and sell that team, please.
How do I not see these coming when they make it here, even on this show that's aimed at the Steelers? Ryan, I'm scratching my head. A lot of people are scratching their heads, and truth be told, Pat is at times scratching his head. But one thing that is clear to all concerned, including Pat, is why. The Steelers, have learned to really value what Pat brings to the overall offense. Arthur Smith has learned to value that. Arthur has communicated to Pat, listen, we need you in this spot because when you do this, they do that. And that opens up this over here. Now, the part that drives me nuts about this is that you see, Ryan, and I see that when they really, really need something, they can go to Pat and get it, like the touchdown last week in Washington. I don't know that anybody on the Commander's sideline didn't see coming that Pat could get open for that play. And you know what? He didn't even get all that open. It was just a physical mismatch. He was twice the size of the guy who ended up following him out to the right side. This guy is an impact player. This guy is going to have his time. I know we keep saying that. I know the season is 9 games old. But if you think back to some of Pat's better performances since he's been in the NFL, they've been against AFC North opponents. Maybe this is the week. Maybe this is the one. The best thing that I can offer here, is that Pat's chin is like this. The belief is high and intense from both the coordinator and Russell Wilson. And the time is going to come, but I'm with you on this. I don't want to see throws to Michael Pruitt. I don't want to see throws to, this is unpopular, but I don't want to see throws to Darnell Washington if they can go to Freiermuth. Okay. And I definitely don't want to see, the Calvin Austin, Van Jefferson, moon balls and stuff. Get the ball to 88. Try it just once. You might like it. And what's that word coming in? Wait, we have a bonus J1Q for the day. Who could possibly be so annoying that he would wait a second?
The PEF has returned to the double shot for just one question for you, DK. Now, the Steelers may have won 7 of the last 8 against the Ravens, but I think the Ravens may have an advantage here, not just having the 3 extra days playing Thursday night last week, but they've also had 3 AFC North matchups as opposed to our 0 in the first 10 weeks. Now, Steelers-Ravens rivalry is on a higher level than the foes from Ohio, but do you think that the Ravens have an extra advantage being more battle-tested within the division?
The PEF, what I like best about you is that you can take all of the analysis that we all invested so much time and energy in all week long and condense it down to the one thing that's the most real. And that is what's the most real about this. At the end of the day, it is still Pittsburgh versus Baltimore. It is still a game that's going to be decided by 3 whole points. That's going to be decided by whether or not Chris Boswell still has it and Justin Tucker doesn't have it anymore. And everything else can just get thrown out. That's why you're the PEF. As long as we're clear on all this, I appreciate you, the PEF. I appreciate everybody checking out the new Double Shot Show. We'll be back with another one of these 4 p.m. Monday to talk about Steelers versus Ravens. Thanks so much for being with us.